Slate magazine said, Wayne Root is just your typical Vegas odds maker turned vice presidential candidate. Add Root to Nevada's claims to fame. Columbia University, where I attended with my classmate Barack Obama, said, if Obama has the audacity of hope, Wayne Root simply has audacity. I love that. You gotta be able to laugh at yourself. Come on. Comedy Central said, did you know Comedy Central was quoting your vice presidential candidate? Comedy Central said vice presidential frontrunners Joe Biden and Sarah Palin are duller than United States Senator Harry Reid giving a policy speech when compared to Wayne Allen Root of the Libertarian Party. The New York Times did a profile on my life that said Wayne Allen Root, the life of the third party. And the one I'm most proud of is Time Magazine. Time Magazine said the things Wayne Root cares about, being able to gamble legally from his home computer, continuing to homeschool his children without government interference, keeping taxes low, speak to many Americans. The new Libertarian Party is more likely to build off Root's game, which is essentially suburbanism. Libertarians are getting ready for the mainstream, and mainstream America may finally be ready for libertarians. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not giving you a sales job here as much as I'm talking about sales. I'm just saying, whoa, you okay?
I'm behind.
I'm just, Lawrence, be careful. I know this is a good speech, but don't fall down. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, not a sales trip here or a sales job here. I'm telling you exactly the facts that happen in a campaign for an obscure third-party vice presidential candidate. And if you think I shook things up during this vice presidential run, how about since the election? Now, being an ex-third-party vice presidential candidate is not exactly a great platform for success. And yet, since then, since the election, I've made over 1,000 media appearances since Election Day. I've become a regular on Fox News and Fox Business over 50 times in the last year on shows like Cavuto, Fox and Friends, Sean Hannity, and Glenn Beck. And of course, I'm most proud, because he's my hero, Judge Andrew Napolitano. I now deliver regular commentaries on Savage Nation with Michael Savage. You may not like his politics. I've heard some libertarians actually criticize me for that. They said, can you imagine? Michael Savage is an ultra-right-wing conservative, and he's a homophobic, and he's a terrible person, and he's pro-war, and that Wayne Root is willing to go on his show. Ladies and gentlemen, he has 8 million listeners. He doesn't ever tell me what to say. He doesn't edit one word I say. I deliver libertarian commentary in front of 8 million conservatives, and I don't know about you, but I think that's a step in the right direction. And just a week ago, I announced I now have my own regular column at Newsmax.com, not only the #1 conservative website in the United States, but the 12th busiest website in the world. And I now have a column entitled Wayne Allen Root, Tea Party Patriot. I think that's good for all of us. Now, I'm a regular on some of the biggest radio shows in the country, but here's the big one. I've actually now become guest host on Larry Elder's show, Jerry Doyle's show, and the G. Gordon Liddy show. And I'm now talking to one of the biggest syndicators in the country about starting my own nationally syndicated radio show. Wow. And my book that we discussed not only hit #1, as Kevin said, but it came out 8 months ago. And you know what? I heard a radical in the Libertarian Party making a snide remark. I think it was on Independent Political Report. He said that book by December will be in the dustbins of history. Ladies and gentlemen, it's February, and it's the 8th straight month. If you type into Amazon Libertarian Books, #1 in the country. 8 straight months. Ladies and gentlemen, how did I do it? I'm relentless. It's the same way in the business world that I've managed to achieve success again and again against all odds. Many of you may not know that at the age of 16, the news media called me the next Jimmy the Greek. And I was just a butcher's kid in Mount Vernon, New York, and I didn't know anything about anything, but I took that article and I believed it. I said, you know what? Wow, the headline says Wayne Root's the next Jimmy the Greek. And I said, I'm going to become it. And then 11 years later, at the age of 27, I became the youngest anchorman in the United States of America at CNBC. And I hosted 6 shows at CNBC. And one day the general manager walked in, his name was Artie Rosenthal, and he said, "Wayne, you don't know this. You think we hired you to be an anchorman and a football analyst. But we really hired you for a different reason. I'd like you to meet your new co-host. Come on down to my office." So I followed him in the elevator. We went down 3 floors. I went to the general manager's office. He opened the door, and sitting at the desk with a stogie in his mouth was Jimmy the Greek Snyder. And he said, "Wayne Root, meet your new co-host on national television." Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great country. The American dream does come true if you're relentless, if you understand sales and marketing and branding and promotion, and if you have energy, and if you have passion, if you love what you're doing. And so against all odds, I became Jimmy the Greek's partner, and ironically, all those years I said I was going to be his partner, I always said I'm going to replace him on national TV. Well, from the moment he met me, he never let me forget that I said I'd replace him on national TV. Well, after about 4 weeks on TV of him just being cantankerous and angry that he had shared the spotlight with me, they decided Wayne Root's a better talker than Jimmy the Greek. Who needs him? And they put him out of the pasture on a satellite dish from his home in Miami while I hosted the show. Well, after 4 weeks of that, they decided who needs him at all, and they got rid of him. And Jimmy the Greek was never on television ever again and died a few years ago. Sad story, but a good story for me. Ladies and gentlemen, a 16-year-old kid decided he was going to be Jimmy the Greek in a country at that point of 250 million people, and I wound up being the last guy on TV with Jimmy the Greek. I think it's an amazing story that tells you what can get done if you're relentless and focused and disciplined and dedicated and you're willing to sacrifice. But then I left FNN, what many of you don't know was called Financial News Network in those days, CNBC, and all the people at FNN said, "You're out of your mind, you're reckless, you're crazy. You're going to leave a position as our lead anchorman, hosting 6 shows at the time, in order to be Jimmy the Greek and sell your predictions on who's going to win and lose football games, when no one's ever done that before. We've never heard of anyone doing that. You're going to create a new industry. You're out of your mind. You're ruining your life. You're ruining your career." Well, so I left FNN to do that. First thing I needed to do was raise $6 million in my business plan to start my business. And this was in 1991, when $6 million meant something. Before the Fed started, printing money like this. And so they were right. I had a hard time raising $6 million. I raised $20 million. They said, "You'll never be able to sell your picks. Just because you gave them on TV and you built a good audience doesn't mean anyone will buy them." Well, that was $150 million worth of picks ago. Not bad, huh? For someone who couldn't do that. I said, "I'm going to take my company public on Wall Street." And everybody said, "You can't do that." I met with all the big shots on Wall Street. They said, "Sports handicapping public on Wall Street? You must be high." And of course, I wasn't a libertarian at that time, so I didn't have I took my company public on Wall Street. I decided to write books, and I got rejected by every publisher in New York again and again and again. Ladies and gentlemen, that was 7 books ago, and I'm writing number 8. You know what number 8 is called? Relentless. I decided to sell a TV show to Hollywood in 1990 while I was an anchorman at CNBC living in Los Angeles. And I got rejected by every company in all of Los Angeles, every single one of them. 20 years later, I sold my show, King of Vegas, to Spike TV. I became creator, executive producer, star of the show, and made several $100,000. I think it's a good thing when you're relentless. It took 20 years, but it happened. And now, I don't know how many of you ever watch Travel Channel, but there's a little show on Travel Channel that's now the second highest rated show in the history of Travel Channel. It's called Ghost Adventures, and I'm the producer of that show, and I'm the guy who brought it to Travel Channel. And right now, at this moment, 2 other shows are in the pipeline. So I went from no shows in 20 years to 4 shows, all being either on the air or considered at the same time.